Hey, what's up, you guys? Thank you so much for joining me today on the meditation channel. Hi, welcome. If you're new to the channel, thank you for being here. So, I decided to talk about this topic because I think this is something that, number one, I know a lot of people go through, and number two, it's something that actually comes up quite often in a lot of my live readings that I do in my on Insight Timer and whenever I deal with clients. And I wanted to essentially share what I did to break the cycle, to set myself free from a pattern, from a cyclical pattern that kept happening in my life over and over and over again. Now, I want to first begin by stating that if you are finding yourself in these type of relationships, so obviously the topic is finding yourself in toxic relationships, abusive relationships, negative relationships, relationships where maybe you can't even create a relationship, because that was also one of my patterns. I'd either create a negative relationship, a very toxic relationship, an abusive relationship, or I wouldn't be able to create a relationship at all. So that was at one point in my life some of my patterns. And so I thought I would basically come on here today and explain to you, number one, why this happens, number two, what you can do to break that pattern, and number three, how to create a relationship that is loving, that is nurturing, that is just everything you've ever wanted. Okay, so quick story about me. I had a pattern of abusive relationships. So when I was 14, I believe, I fell in love. I met the love of my life, at least I thought. And I fell head over heels for this guy. And this ended up actually being a very, very, very significant relationship in my life that honestly, it changed me in so many ways, and it ended up becoming one of my greatest teachers. But this is essentially where I believe the signs began. And it was not a subtle sign, it was a in-your-face, obvious sign. So I met this person, let's call him Nick. I met Nick when I was 14. He was working at this pool hall in Australia, and we basically ended up hanging out. We fell in love, if you like, and everything was great for the first 6 months. Nothing unusual about the relationship. And within the 6-month mark, things started to change. Now, a lot of you who have been in abusive relationships, you know that this is actually a pattern with abusers where they hook you in, and once they're secured, once they know that they have you hooked in, that's when they start testing you. That's when they begin to push the boundaries. So after the 6-month mark, things very quickly took a turn. And he basically started to ask me to do things that were inappropriate. He started to ask me to do things that were just not good. Like leaving school early to go and meet him, or to test my love all the time, to prove how much I loved him. And then, long story short, I ended up living with him. I was in and out of the house at the time because I kept getting kicked out of home. Long story, but that's a whole other story. And he had his own place by that point, by the way, because he was like 3 years older than me. That's when things, of course, got worse. I just basically lack of sleep. I was also going through my eating disorder at the time, so he was using that against me. And very quickly, it turned into extreme manipulation, extreme violence, and it got to the point where my life was in danger. And I stayed with this person for 3.5 years. And the breaking point for me was actually when he cheated on me with my only friend, because I was only allowed to have a certain amount of friends, because of course they control your environment, your social environment. And long story short, that was when I just decided this was enough, because for me, cheating, I guess, was the breaking point, not the violence, not the abuse, not the manipulation, but apparently the cheating was. And even then, I still gave him some time after that. It took a minute for me to let go, because you become addicted to this person. Abusive relationships and toxic relationships are kind of like gambling. You get these extremes high and extreme lows because your emotions are always going so up and down. You know, these people can make you feel like the most special, incredible person in their world or in the world. And very quickly, as they give you that gift, they take it away. And so you get this glimpse of hope. You see this potential of what the relationship could be or who this person could become. And then very quickly that dream is taken. So for some reason that creates kind of like this chasing the carrot kind of situation, you know, never really quite getting it, but always just having this thing dangled in front of your face. And I guess it becomes just an addictive pattern. Long story short, we were together 3.5 years, and eventually I built up the courage to leave. And very quickly, one of the things that I want to tell you is, number one, that when you're in this type of relationship, you also hold power. You may think that you do not, but trust me, you take yourself away from that relationship and see how quickly these people go crazy. Because just as much as they need you, you need them, right? But they need you, you need them. So this is an exchange that essentially is happening. But of course, when you're in that situation, you don't feel or think that you have any power because that's the way that they want to make it look. So I spent a long time after that on a healing journey. But one of the things that I promised myself was like, I'm never going to end up in an abusive relationship ever again. Well, guess what? Of course it happened again. Luckily, never to that extreme, but I know many of you have had that cycle happen where you end up essentially in the same relationship, just different appearance. But essentially, it's like that person's spirit just transferred to another human. And you basically relive the same situation, relive the same trauma. And then what ends up happening here is that you end up also hating yourself even more because you're like, how did I end up here again? Your hopes were put up again with this new, fresh person that obviously for the first beginning of the relationship appeared to be this amazing human being. And then just like everybody else, the rug was pulled out of underneath from you at the last moment, just when your hopes were just rebuilt. And so I want to talk a little bit about why this happens. So this is essentially called shadow work. I talk a lot about this in one of my videos, so if you haven't seen it, please check it out. There's part 1 and part 2 of the shadow work that I do. It'll help you understand this in much more in depth, and I will also teach you how to do integration. So I do highly, highly, highly recommend that you check that out. I will also put a link in the description box below. But essentially what shadow work is, it's the unhealed aspects within our subconscious. And when these aspects are not healed, they basically present themselves or appear in our lives. And one of those is cyclical patterns. So if you have an unhealed subconscious aspect of you that you have suppressed, disowned, and denied that lives in your subconscious, but it needs to be healed, it will continuously show itself in relationships, in situations, in manifestations. And ultimately, it feels like a punishment. It really does. But the truth of the matter is that these situations continue to appear because it's like your subconscious trying to say, hey, this is a problem. It's an issue that we have not resolved and we need to fix this, because if we don't fix this, we cannot move on. And so this is one of the reasons why these situations keep reoccurring, keep manifesting over and over and over again. So once I started doing a lot of healing and understanding this, I finally recognized this as a shadow, as a pattern. And once I understood that, then suddenly I felt like I had a little bit more power, like I had a little bit more of a choice, because up until that point, it feels like you just fall victim to this. You feel like you have no control. It's like, I can't control who I'm attracted to, right? The second thing is, these things also happen because it's very likely that you're attracted to what is familiar. So a lot of you may have had maybe male or female figures in your life who maybe were abusive or who were toxic. Maybe your father, maybe your grandfather, maybe your uncle, maybe somebody in your family. This goes for men and women, of course, who displayed certain traits that are very similar in these partners. And because as a child you were not able to heal that and to fix that, and you simply adapted to survive, you suppressed, disowned, and denied that wound. And now that you're an adult, your subconscious is trying to heal it. And of course you're an adult, so you're able to heal it, but because it usually happens in childhood, it's almost like a part of you is stagnant. It never grew up. So inner child work is another thing that I highly recommend to do, to essentially go back in time and rescue your inner child. I do have some meditations on my channel with that, so please, again, I'll put the links below, but check that one out, because it's a powerful way to basically go back in time, rescue your inner child, and allow them to grow up and catch up. Another exercise that you can do is to write a letter to yourself from the perspective of your inner child. So to To my older self, I need you to, and then just basically let the pen flow. These are just very simple exercises that you can do to essentially tap in. If you want me to go more in depth with that, I can't speak today. Leave a comment below, and maybe I'll do a whole lesson on that. But today I just want to basically touch on why these things happen and why some of these triggers are happening. And if this is one of those things that resonates with you, then it's probably the issue. So unfortunately, we want to be able to feel like we have some level of control or some level of power to essentially shift the dynamics. So one of the things is, now that you understand that there's a pattern, you need to recognize the pattern. So one of my patterns, for instance, is I said to myself, okay, now that I understand that I'm attracted to abusive people, I'm going to give myself a promise. And that promise was essentially that if that person said anything that was very similar to any of my exes, anything manipulative, anything that was abusive, physical especially, I would have to leave. There was no question, I would just have to leave. I'd have to break the relationship. Now, of course, this is much easier said than done, you guys, but when you've been through that type of relationship enough times, it comes to a point where enough is enough. And it comes to a point where you got to stand up for yourself, because in a sense, these relationships do not really have as much power over you. And I know for some of you, this is very, very, very difficult to hear. At the beginning, yes. But the longer you stay in that relationship, essentially there's an aspect of us that allows this behavior to continue. And in a sense, relationships are a mirror. They're a mirror of how we essentially treat ourselves. Because you could be the nicest person on the planet, the kindest, most gentle person on the planet. But if you're in an abusive relationship, in a toxic relationship, then there are toxic traits within you that you are not seeing. And it could simply be something like you're abandoning yourself. You're treating yourself like trash. You're abusive towards yourself, or maybe others. But oftentimes that's what I found within myself, is that I was abusing myself. And then of course, if you look back, I had an eating disorder. I mean, that's literally physical abuse towards myself. So it all reflected and it all started making sense. The other thing that you want to ask yourself is, what am I gaining from this relationship? And a lot of you can say companionship, love, those are very superficial and obvious things. I want you to dig a little bit deeper than that and really find the core need behind it all. Once you find that need, I encourage you to find a way to give yourself that need outside of that relationship. Because once you fill that need, you no longer seek it from that one person that you depend on, but you start looking for that need in other people, whether it's friendships, whether it's a creative expression, whether you start going to art classes, or for me, it was acting classes. It could be really anything, writing classes, start a project, it does not matter. But the point is, you want to find that resource, that desperation, basically, where you're getting it from that one source, which makes you dependent on them. You need to find other ways to get that. So essentially, once I recognized the pattern, okay, I started noticing the red flags. And the minute I noticed that red flag in a partner, now, obviously, the first person is going to be a little bit more difficult to just break up with. But at least you're aware of it. And it will make it much, much easier for you to walk away. But you also have to be strong, and you have to be brave, and you have to believe that there are good people out there, that there is a healthy relationship out there for you. And that's another block, right? If you don't believe that that's out there for you, then how are you going to manifest that? So changing the relationship with yourself, again, is very important. So starting to believe that you're worthy of love. Stop abusing yourself. Stop putting yourself down. Stop abandoning yourself. And to start changing the relationship with yourself so that you essentially mirror that on the outside. And then once I started recognizing them, okay, I started breaking those patterns, started breaking up with people a lot quicker. And then it got eventually to the point where I wouldn't even give them much of a chance. It was like they had maybe 2 or 3 strikes. And on the 3rd strike, I would just leave. And it got to the point that I was okay with that, because once I started filling my needs from other sources, I didn't have that desperate need for that love. I didn't have that desperate need for that companionship, for that belonging, for that being seen, whatever it was that these people, I guess, were giving me. And I started to like myself a little bit more. And one of the biggest things that I find with people who are in toxic relationship, the number one relationship that you have to heal is the relationship with yourself. If you don't love yourself, or at least try to learn how to love yourself, this pattern's never going to break. Because as long as you think that you are worthy of it, that's what you're going to attract. You know, somebody with high self-esteem would never tolerate certain things. And there's a reason for that. And those people will not try to be with somebody with high self-esteem because they'll destroy them. Building your self-esteem is essential in these situations, and you can do this while you're in that relationship. There are resources out there. So I also started to see a therapist. I had no intention in manifesting a relationship. I just started to see a therapist because I was wanting to continue the healing journey, and I'd done a lot of work on my own, and I was ready to get more resources from a professional. Anyway, long story short, it all clicked. And when I had that aha moment, it was the best decision of my entire life. I had that aha moment that I was attracted to people who were abusive, to narcissists and to abusive people. Once I understood that, I was like, oh my gosh, my wiring is completely effed up. So I can never go for somebody that I'm attracted to. I know this sounds messed up, you guys, but it's going to make sense in a minute. I was attracted to what was familiar. If I was in a room of 50 people and the one narcissist or abusive people, I guarantee that I would go up to that person and I would connect with that person. And it has happened before in the past where I've been at parties and I meet this person and there's something about them. I'm like, you know, they might not even be attractive, but I'm attracted to them. And then I end up starting a relationship and lo and behold, guess what? So once I realized that, I was like, okay, I have to completely rethink this whole dating. I have to completely rethink how I have relationships and friendships even. And what I understood finally, I honed it down to something very simple. I needed to go after what I needed, not what I wanted, what I needed. And what I realized that I needed, and I do encourage you to do a list of that, of the things that you want in a partner, that's great. Have that list, nothing wrong with that. But it's really important to fulfill your needs. And my needs were somebody who was loyal, somebody who was honest, somebody who prioritized me and my needs. Obviously, somebody who loves me, somebody who loves to spend time with me. What is your love language? Okay, there is touch, there is time, there is gifts, there is words of affirmations, and I can't remember what the other one was. But what is it that makes you feel really loved? And for me, it was time. Okay, because I did not have that with my father, because when my parents separated, he was in a different country, and that abandonment kept manifesting also through certain partners. So I'd either attract people who were very abusive and possessive, or I'd attract people who were just never there, who would totally ghost me. Like I said, I couldn't even attract a person, or I would be attracted to people who were unavailable. Once I understood all of this, I simply just set that intention. And then I didn't realize this, but my husband was there all along. We were friends for 3 years. And you're going to notice one thing. You might not be immediately physically attracted to the person that is right for you because, again, your wiring, your primal wiring is kind of a little bit messed up. And you're going to be attracted to the toxic, aggressive person, whatever that is, your toxicity that you're attracted to. Maybe it's a narcissist, maybe it's an angry person. I don't know what your thing is. So once I understood that, if I was attracted to somebody, I very quickly did not allow that relationship to grow and evolve so I wouldn't get attached to them. But with my husband, I suddenly realized that he ticked all of the boxes. He was always honest, he was always on time, he always cared about me, he was always very gentle. And even though at the time I didn't have that initial attraction to him, I thought, well, if I don't try something different at this point, I'm never gonna know, I'm never gonna find out. And we were really good friends by then. So I made a decision to open my heart and try. And it felt foreign, it felt weird, it felt uncomfortable at the beginning because I'm like, I just don't feel what I normally feel for people. And like I said, it was honestly the best decision that I've ever made. It didn't take very long for my heart to open, for my heart to see. And it didn't take very long for me to become attracted to him. It honestly was a matter of a week. Once I was attracted to him, once I had this deep connection, what was so beautiful about this relationship is that unlike the other relationships where you have this immediate explosion and then it fades over time, with my husband, everything just kept getting deeper, more meaningful, more powerful, more magical. And so it just got better and better and better and better the more we were together. And of course we got married, and now we're very happy, we're doing great. And of course no relationship is perfect, but our communication is amazing, and I've never felt more loved and more seen and more cared for in my entire life. And I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, wish this for you. So if you're going through a toxic relationship, you're struggling to attract a healthy partner, I'm here to tell you that it is possible. It will take some work, and it's not the work that you think. Don't work from the outside in. That's the power of this. You can only work from the inside out. When you heal the relationship that you have with yourself, when you begin to see yourself from a different place, start caring for yourself, loving yourself, treating yourself the way that you want your partner to treat you, then you will attract that person into your life. Cool. Well, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this message got through to some of you. I don't know. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you want me to extend on this. If you have any questions, I always reply. I'm always here. I have a ton of meditations, guys, by the way, on this kind of topic. So please feel free to seep through my library, type it in, check it out. I will put links below of anything that may be relevant so you can take a look. But I really just want to encourage you to take that leap of faith, be brave, try something different. There is no such thing as making a mistake. It's only trying and evolving and growing and learning. And if you can see it from that perspective, it makes it so much easier to try. All right, guys. That's it for today. So thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give a thumbs up to this video if it helped. And as always, I will talk to you soon. Have a magical day. Bye-bye.